All right, everybody, welcome back to Real Talking. Today, I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm getting away from football for a minute, getting away from the Raiders. I've been going crazy on that anyways, and I brought in a guest and somebody who I've admired, somebody who I've worked with a few times. But she's worked with some of the most prominent names in sports. You've seen her with Oregon, you've seen her with the Warriors, you've seen her with the Timbers, and she's got a shirt that's just kind of taken over the sports industry. It's the Diverse Voices Tee. You can find her on her podcast Amplified, where she talks from everything about diverse voices in sports all the way to different identities outside of sports. You can find her on Twitter as well at Meg Reyes _. We got Megan Reyes. How you doing?
Hi, Kenny. Thanks for having me. I'm good. I'm excited. I haven't
Yeah.
recorded in a minute, so we're gonna dust off the potting skills. I'm happy to
There
be
you
here.
go. Hey, I haven't had an interview in a while, so it's always been just me getting on and ranting about the Raiders. And so I figure with everything that's been going on, it's nice to have a nice little fresh breath of fresh air, get things going. But to kind of dive into it, you've had a pretty interesting, quick journey into sports. But tell me about the whole timeline of the people that don't know.
Yeah. I always say like, let me condense this, and then I end up talking for like 5 minutes. But the story goes, I always wanted to be in fashion. Wanted to do I wanted to be Lauren Conrad. I watched, Laguna Beach in the Hills, and I
Yeah.
wanted to do the runway stuff, and I can't draw. So that was being a fashion designer was a very short-lived dream for me once I realized like, well, you can't draw and you're not that artistic. So I went to college with the ambitions of doing PR and marketing and just going that route in the fashion world. And my freshman year of college, our athletic department was hiring marketing interns, and I truly was 18 years old and did not know what the word internship even meant.
Yeah.
Again, things that we aren't teaching kids early
Right.
on in school. But I applied just kind of like, oh, sure, let's see what happens. Let's see where the wind blows me, and got the internship and fell in love. I remember I think my first game was either a basketball game or a football game. And it's not to say I've never been to games, but it's different when you're on that side. It's different when you're
Yeah.
on the sideline and you're really close to the action and you're doing the behind the scenes work. And I fell in love with it and just completely pursued that throughout college, and also worked for my school's football team as a recruiting assistant, and then worked for the Timbers for a summer before I graduated. And I'm fortunate that I figured that out so early at 18, because I was able to
Mhm.
tailor my experience to set myself up for an easier transition post grad. Anyone knows it's really unfortunately difficult to get into the
Yeah.
industry. Not to say that it wouldn't have been difficult had I maybe delayed my timeline a little bit. So there was certainly elements of luck there. But I got my first full-time job when I graduated at the University of Oregon, and I was selling tickets. I was a nitty-gritty salesman on the phone, and I didn't hate it. I just didn't want to be in sales. I never wanted to do that. I was a very shy person. A lot of people now that know me probably wouldn't think that about me, but I was
Yeah.
very, very reserved and really scared to talk to people I didn't know. But at the time, it was pretty much the one easier entry level way into the industry, and I did it. And now looking back on it, I don't regret it, because I can now have no problem just talking to people I don't know. And then I came down to the Bay Area after 2 years at Oregon to work for the Warriors, and was there for 7 years, or I'm sorry, not 7 years, 4 years. And it was similar. It was very client facing. But I really at some point was like, it's tiring to be in a very client facing
Mhm.
um external type of role. And I had always wanted to do something more marketing, a little bit more creative. So did a pivot. I went to the video game industry for a hot minute and worked for 2K. And I thought for a while there, like maybe sports wasn't for me, but then I missed it. And at this point, social media had evolved so much, and there was a lot more creative opportunities, a lot more content opportunities. And I got a job at the Athletic. And so I was there for 2 years doing both community marketing and then eventually social media. And that, pretty much brings me into 2021, because I joined Blue Wire at the beginning of the year, and took this last, 12 years of experience, and a role was created for me to sit in a very cross-functional seat and get to do a lot of different things and help grow the company and help bring the Vegas studio to life and bring lots of content creators on. And then honestly, I just at one point in the last couple years, I never thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I never thought I wanted to work for myself until the idea just kept creeping up. And I've realized that I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset since I was a kid. There's like a story about my dad that I can tell later when he was like, you've been this way since you were like 4. And so, yeah, in October, I did the thing and I went freelance. And so that's where I am now. It's been a very like lots of ups and downs and lefts and rights and twists and turns, but I know everything has got me to where I am for a reason.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously making a career pivot. So, during a time of like inconsistency, right? Like we don't know what's going on in this world and things are wild, things are crazy, but navigating through that and the ebbs and flows, and then also having a new puppy like that.
Yes.
That changes things. Like people think, oh, it's just a dog. No, dogs are like kids. And
yes. I
it's
underestimated
rough.
that because I knew how much work a dog is. What I underestimated and didn't really think about was the ability to just go somewhere.
Yeah.
And I guess, I didn't grow up with a dog, but my brother and sister-in-law have one who's been in our lives for 16 years. And so I just see like, oh, they just leave her. They can just go do things. But I totally underestimated that the years of puppy where they couldn't just
Right.
do that.
Right.
And so now with freelance and travel, and my next 2 weeks are I'm going to be on like 8 different flights. It's not as easy to just come and go, because then there's also the underlying aspect of, okay, where is she going to be? Who's going to watch her? How can I add this into my logistics? So yes, it does definitely add a layer that was unexpected.
Yeah. And I know that I got 2 kids and
Right. It's the same
it's the
thing, kind
same
of.
thing. It's like I go to Vegas, I'm okay, who's going to be picking the kids up? What are we doing? So I get it. You know, one of the things that I admire about you is that you've been able to be very focused and very upfront with, mental health, talking about anxiety, talking about, all the things that kind of go on day-to-day life. What drove you to, to kind of bring that to light and to have those conversations?
Yeah. I can I can give like a little background on like my mental health journey. So when I was living in Eugene, I had my first experiences with like anxiety and panic attacks that I never understood. And I don't think anxiety just came out of nowhere. It never comes out of it just
No.
anywhere. It's something you have. I know I've had it my whole life. It was masked because I was such a busy child and was a very on the go person in college, like multiple internships, jobs, sorority, parties. Like I didn't know how to sit still, but that's
Yeah.
now I in hindsight see it's because I couldn't sit still. And so I went to therapy when I was in Eugene, but it wasn't consistent. I didn't have the right mindset. I didn't have the right intentions. I just thought she was going to be like, here's what's wrong with you and here's what we're going to do to fix it. So I gave up. And when I moved to California, I didn't pursue it again until 2020, between like some traumatic experiences and the pandemic. I was like, I really need to talk to someone. And so I've now been consistently seeing this therapist for the last like year and a half. And so the more I learned about myself and the more I talked to some of my very close friends, whom, not to say that they never knew these things, but once we got like really vulnerable and like, this is how I'm feeling and this is why I think it is, dating all the way back to maybe in my childhood, or maybe like, oh, wow, this thing happened 5 years ago, and realizing that a lot of us are so similar made me feel a little bit more comfortable. Like, okay, I'm not, and I use this word very loosely because I don't like this word, but okay, I'm not the crazy one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because when the problem with not having these conversations is we continue to isolate ourselves, and each of us really start to truly think like, I'm just crazy, like there's something wrong with me, when there's not. And all of us are likely experiencing or have thought or have gone through something similar. So the more I've had these conversations and realized, okay, I'm not alone, I eventually found some courage and confidence to talk about it publicly. And the more I see people reply or send really nice DMs, or just sort of not validate, because I don't need the validation, but affirm like, I also have experienced this, and thank you for speaking up on it. Kind of gives me that motivation to keep going. And with Amplified and some of the other projects I'm working on around similar topics, all like my one hope when I started Amplified, and I think the same sentiment rings true for some of this other stuff, is if just one person can feel less alone, if one person can learn something about themselves to help them understand like, oh, I'm not crazy. There's not something wrong with me. Like, this is a thing. When I talked about it on my episode with Jenny, when I learned from my therapist about cognitive distortions and how like these are scientific things and thought patterns that people have, I'm like, oh, okay. So that really wild, random catastrophizing thought I have that I'm going to come home and my apartment's going to be burned down isn't just me being crazy. It's like, it's a thing. And she told me, my therapist, that she specifically wanted me to read that article to help me understand that scientists have put a term to it, because it's not just you. So all that to say that I hope by being public, and I hope by having these conversations, we can start to understand that we are all going through something similar, whether our journeys are different, whether our experiences are different. Oftentimes the internal obstacles are very similar.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that really sticks to me is you saying that so somebody doesn't feel alone, because I think oftentimes a lot of people feel alone. And like for me, my personal experience is, music is kind of my way of like coping, right? And seeing somebody like Kanye West or seeing somebody like a Kid Cudi speak publicly about the things that they deal with was like, okay, this is something that I can relate to. What are ways that you use to kind of take yourself out of that mental space, or to kind of shift your mindset?
Ooh, I'm still learning. I'm still figuring it out. Like, you mean like if, say, I'm in a bad headspace for the day, what do I do to?
Yeah.
Right now, as of probably the last year or so, my thing is I go on a drive. And the aspect of it is also, I think, the music. But for example, yesterday, it wasn't even so much a bad headspace. I just was constantly on the go for almost 10 hours. And I realized like, wow, I haven't left the house since yesterday. And I just got up and told my dog, like, I'll be back. And I just got in the car and went on a drive. My thing for where I'm in Walnut Creek. I like to drive to Oakland, and I like to just go sit at Lake Merritt and just kind of be by myself. And so drives are my thing. It helps me clear my mind. It helps me just remove myself from the situation. And sometimes I'll call a friend, but one thing I'm trying to learn to do is be less reliant on calling friends or family when I'm having a difficult day or in a difficult headspace, because I think what's really important in someone's personal growth is learning to be with your own thoughts and work through it yourself. I have no shame sharing this, that one of the big reasons I'm in therapy is my codependency on anyone in my life. And what the problem with that is, I've learned that sometimes, like for most of my life, I can't trust my own thoughts. So I need someone else to tell me like yes or no, or kind of tell me what to do, because I just never learned to trust my thoughts and like make my own decisions without someone else giving me like a thumbs up or a thumbs down. So that to say, when I go on drives, I really, really try to just be with myself so I can work through it myself and not rely on someone else to do it. So drives are big for me. And then also, with that said, sometimes calling a friend and just talking about something else is also really nice. But just listening to music. Listening to music and just driving and kind of like zoning out is my thing. What do you do?
I do the same. Actually, I do the same. I'm a big driver. Like I told you one time, I was like, I just drive around Walnut Creek. Like I will literally, like, I will go like down North Main, down Locust. I used to go through Broadway Plaza, but they shut it off now. And I'll just drive and I'll listen to music. And like one of my biggest things was, especially like when my mom was going through everything, I would just, get out and just drive and turn my music on full blast and just unplug from everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like my son would be sitting in the back and he just listen to whatever I put on. Like he's wild. He listens to like Tyler the Creator and stuff. He's 3. And like he asked me to put on Who That Boy. And I'm like, all right. I mean, like I'm a
You
horrible
taught him.
influence, but yeah. But at least he's gonna have a really good grasp of what good music is, right? But yeah, I do that. I call my dad a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I found that he's kind of that one person that I can kind of vent to, and he'll give me like that straight, like no bullshit answer,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, you know, get your shit together. I talk to my wife; she's a therapist, and so
Oh,
it
okay.
really helps. You know, that helps a lot. And then I have a therapist as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I work with him. I've been working with him for like 8 years, and he's helped me with a lot of stuff, just like with, you know, anxiety, depression, you know, everything that I've dealt with and things like that. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can get into my story, but this is about you. And, you know,
I'm going to bring you on mine so we can talk about your story.
get the
Because
tissue ready for
yeah,
that
I
one.
want to hear that.
But, you know, kind of pivoting from, you know, from all those things, I want to talk about the tea. I mean, because
Okay.
that thing has taken over like social media, sports. We see it at sporting events. We see it, you know, from everywhere, from Joy Taylor to Steve White's to even I've got a hoodie that I was wearing to the store the other day, and I hopefully some girl bought it because she was like, hey, I want that. And so
Oh, that's so cool.
what prompted you to design it, and what, I mean, tell me about that journey.
Yeah. It's just so wild to me. Right before I got on this recording and I like put out a tweet about not being able, like never being taught how to accept praise or compliments, and I'm working on that. And so whenever people talk about, you know, the shirt and the merchandise, I'm just like, that's so wild to me. Like I can't believe that it is what it is.
Yeah.
But you know, for a while there I was always telling people like, oh, it was a thought. It was a thought that came to mind and I executed on it. And I was on a recording over the summer and someone challenged me of like, I'm going to push you a little bit harder on it. Like, was it a thought, or really what were the circumstances that led up to you saying like something, we need to do something with this? And so I thought more about it, and she was correct in that, you know, at that point, I mean, it was earlier this year. So for 12 years of working in sports, team side, media side, pro teams, college teams, I didn't see many people that looked like me, especially early on in my career. I would be in meeting rooms. I would look at the top of companies, and there weren't many people that looked like me. And we've known this is an issue. And in the last couple of years, peers and friends in the sports space, especially like my friends of color and of Black men and women, are talking more about how it's not a safe space. Well, it's not a safe space, and also not an inclusive space for people like them. And so that's always just been like on my subconscious. And especially last year, Black Lives Matter, social justice movements, people talking about how we're going to do better. 99% of it was performative, and we didn't see much change. And so I think all of these things compounded. And at the same time, I was trying to find something to keep myself busy that could also do good. Last year, the height of the pandemic, when I had way too much time on my hands, I was hand sewing face masks and selling them and taking all the profits and donating them to any of the organizations that were supporting social justice and uplifting Black communities, from like Black Lives Matter to Jacob Blake's GoFundMe, and doing all this stuff. So I've always liked those types of projects where I can stay busy, and it's not about the money. It's about how I can help use my platform to give back. And so it was kind of that time of year again, where I'm like, what can I do? And it all sort of compounded. And so when I say that the thought just came to mind, I now realize that the thought of the design itself came to mind, but it was like years and years of experiences and just observations that added to it. But the shirt design itself truly was just like a light bulb that went off. And I quickly like wrote it down and did like a very horrible mock on Canva just to like get the idea down. Showed it to a bunch of friends and made sure that I showed it to each person that was representative of the group. Am I leaving anyone off? Am I offending anyone? Because it's the last thing we want to do here, is to try and do good and end up like the main character of Twitter of the day, my worst nightmare. And I didn't have the confidence that it would be a success. And in my mind, it was like, this isn't about sales. This isn't about me. I want to give back, and I want to use my platform for good. But the like handful of people I showed it to, it was an immediate like, sell it. I'm a medium. What is it going on sale? And so that kind of gave me some hype of like, I think this could go somewhere. And I mean, my intention was like, if I can sell 50, I'll be so happy. I was like, if I can just reach out, like if this just touches 50 people and they can relate to it, like I'll be happy. And I didn't expect it to be this at all.
I mean, when you talk about viral sensations, it's viral in a good way. Like it's something positive. It's something that's uplifting. It's something it's true. We do need it. We do need more voices in sports. We need more diverse voices everywhere, and we look at kind of everything that's happened in this past year, just in sports, with Carl Nassib coming out with people talking more, who was it? I believe Logan Thomas taking time off for mental health. People being more open and honest about it than they ever have been. I mean, I think, like for me, I think my earliest remembrance of somebody being open and honest with mental health was Brandon Marshall, when he talked about his deal with his bout with bipolar. And we're having more and more people talk about it, and it's less, because also I can say in the Black community, we'll make a joke out of it, right? Like, he's crazy, or he's got CT, or there's something wrong with him. Now it's more like, hey, no, let's take this time and like, let's really acknowledge it and have that conversation of what's going on and how can we help them. What are some things that you see happening in the future? Sorry, my son just came out here and
you're good. Like with the project?
Yeah.
Or
just with the project, do you have anything new that you've got coming planned on, or?
Not currently. I mean, again, like my intention was March 8th. So the idea came to mind like really late February, and I'm like, how could I align, like when should I do this? My birthday's March. I'm like, should I launch it in March? And then I realized like, oh wow, International Women's Day is the 8th. And I reached out to a merch vendor I had used at a previous job and was like, hey, it's me again. Like, I have this idea. Is this something that you would be able to help me execute on, like, I don't know, in the next 6 days? And I intended to sell it March 8th through like the end of the month, take the proceeds, donate it, and just be like, I did some good. Didn't expect it to go on for as long as it has. And everything sort of has a natural like cutoff. So, I mean, even in a perfect world, if every single person on this planet buys one, like there will eventually be a natural like cut off to it. But I haven't really thought that far, because I just also didn't expect that it would be early December and people are still purchasing, and supporters groups at soccer stadiums are asking to license it to put on banners.
That's so cool.
Never expected it, but it's just a start, right? Whether it's with this or a different project, it's just a start. And again, like, and I mean this sincerely, like, it was never about my name or me. It was like, I wanted to create something that the community could really rally behind and come together. And fortunately it was this, and if I can use my platform for that good, then I've done something. But I don't know yet. I haven't quite thought. It's not that time of year, because it usually that like antsy, what can I do now, creeps up like around spring. So I don't know what idea is going to pop in my head in a few months.
I'm excited to see what happens, because I mean, look, seems like everything you touch is gold. The podcast is going great. I mean, you've got some great guests on there. You just recapped season 1. What do you got on the docket for season 2?
Oh man, I really want to speak more with athletes of all levels. I mean, I have a couple on this season now, and our final 2 episodes. Oh wow, today's Wednesday. We unfortunately had to skip today, but the next 2 weeks are our last 2 episodes, one with a professional player and one with a college player. And I really want to speak with more athletes of all levels, and kind of what we were talking about a little bit ago is, continue to have these consistent conversations that just weren't being held up
Yeah.
until really, really recently. And I want to talk to men and women of all color, of all levels. So to really, I really don't like the word normalize. And so I'm going to eventually have to find a better word for that, but to normalize it so that people feel less alone. Right. And I think I have a niece who's almost 14, so athletic, softball, volleyball, all the things. And I mean, I feel like she's too young for me to be like, do you have anxiety? Are you okay? Like, what's going on with you? But should she?
But that's that age.
Yeah, should she? And maybe she's doesn't want to talk about it. She can see people of any level and know that, like, you don't have to let any thoughts of anxiety, any thoughts of depression, any mental health thoughts stop you from playing a sport. So that's where I want to take it. Format, not sure, but I just want to continue having these conversations because I think it's so important. And like, this is why mental performance coaches exist, right? But we know it affects them on and off the field, and the pressures and the struggles. And I also just want to have these conversations so that fans who don't understand it, I was talking about this on a Twitter Spaces yesterday, the like, you get paid X amount of money, like, why do you have struggles in life? Hate it. Like, we have to debunk that. And so I also want to keep having these conversations so that we can start to humanize these athletes, because we need to separate who they are as a profession from who they are as a human. And like, that's where I kind of want to take everything.
It's exciting. I'm excited for that. And
thanks.
Like I said, I'm always open to talking. So
I'm serious. We are actually talking about this offline, because it's not, we're going to reverse and we're going to talk about your experiences on mine.
Well, Megan, I really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with before we go?
I've talked about it a couple times already, but if anyone relates to anything we talked about, know you're not alone. My DMs are open for anyone that wants to just like share, and, especially when it comes to anxiety, especially when it comes to depression, and know that, like, I'm a good listener, I like to say, and that you can just talk to someone. And I use that term a lot while we were recording, less alone, but no one's alone. We're all in this together. So thank you for having me. This was really fun, and I'm very serious. We're going to get you on mine, and we're going to do this again soon.
Well, thank you again for coming on. You guys can find her at meganareyes.com or on Twitter at megreyes_. Megan, thank you again. I look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks.
Kenny K, real talk.